Thank you for watching today's Critical Thought, your daily bite-sized discussion of game design, courtesy of GameWisdom.com. Hello, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to today's Critical Thought, and thank you to 726 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. We hit 700 as of Wednesday, and things are definitely growing faster than I thought. And remember, for those of you watching this, you only have until midnight tonight to vote for what Let's Play you would like to see next on the channel. As of this moment, we are currently having a three-way tie between the Mega Man Classic Run, the Alone in the Dark Resident Evil double feature, and the Hitman 2016 play. Be sure to vote. You can either do that on this video or on the 700 subscribers and channel reward Critical Thought as well. For today's Critical Thought, we're returning to the topic of free-to-play, but this time we're going to be talking about when games make the migration over to free-to-play and what happens to a game's design and just the general play of it. Now, the idea of transitioning from MMO or retail to free-to-play has certainly gotten a lot of movement over recent years, especially over the last probably 8 or 9 years. I think things have really changed. The first major example was the big MMO craze of the early to mid thousands. After World of Warcraft basically cemented itself as #1, we saw a multitude of MMOs being released to try and either capitalize or just suction off some of WoW's subscriber base. There are MMOs like, I think, Motor City Online, Auto Assault, City of Heroes, Star Trek Online, Lord of the Rings Online, Dungeons and Dragons Online, online being a popular word used there. But talking about what happened to those MMOs, that is another Critical Thought easily. The ones that weren't able to adapt and change disappeared. Auto Assault, which had a promising idea, never managed to get off the ground. City of Heroes did last a while, but then it slowly sank, and I think it was finally turned off either last year or maybe the year before that. The MMOs that did manage to survive were the ones that transitioned into free-to-play. And during that time, it was still relatively unheard of. I'm trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure either Lord of the Rings Online or Dungeons and Dragons Online was the first MMO to do the free-to-play transition. Now, flash forward to today, and we're even seeing retail games going this option. There's, of course, Evolve over there that went free-to-play earlier this year, and there's been rumors that Battleborn, which was, I believe, Gearbox's third or first-person MOBA that was released a few months ago, is also, there's rumors that it may go free to play, but at this point we're not sure. But just like with any kind of game design, it's very interesting to see how games and companies adapt when they're moving away from their original vision. Much like with designing multiplayer, it's a different story compensating for this feature back during the early implementation or alpha period versus adding something when the game's already been released. And the same can be said of the free-to-play elements. So I want to talk about some of the telltale signs and design theories that happen when a game makes this move. And I'm pretty sure for you folks watching, you've probably seen examples of this in a lot of games. So the first biggie and the major telltale sign that a game has gone free-to-play is the introduction of premium currency. Be it, gold, gems, stars, rubies, anything you can think of that could be referenced lore-wise, and even just something as, I think they had like cryptic points, or for cryptic, studios. Premium currency, as we know from free-to-play and social games, is all about having a economy or a currency that is reserved for the highest or most expensive items in your game. In some free-to-play games, premium currency may only be available by spending real money, or aka converting it. Other games may allow you to earn it, but at very, very small amounts. The difference between earning 5 or 10 versus, buying 100 or 500 with a few bucks. And you know what premium currency buys? Shortcuts. That is, of course, the second thing that is always added. What we see when a lot of games make that transition from retail/subscription to free-to-play is the developer will go through every system of their game to try and figure out what can they turn into a grind, what can be essentially commoditized in a sense. And we can see this in a lot of examples, some more annoying than others. In DC Universe Online, for instance, if you didn't spend money or have their monthly subscription rate, they literally limited how much money you could store on your character at one time. You literally could not have more money. If you sold items that would take you over that limit, that money would basically be gone. And by buying DLCs or subscribing to their premium service, they raised the limit of how much money you could have. That was just a very annoying thing. Some MMOs or free-to-play games will figure out ways to reduce grind or add grind and then give you the option to get past it. This can be everything as simple as downtime whenever you do a mission, to only being able to use, let's say, 3 workers at a time, but then if you give us $10 or 50 gems, we'll let you have 4 workers at a time. Isn't that amazing? And it is definitely one of the more annoying issues when we see the free-to-play or the monetization elements added in. And I'll expand on that in 1 second. All these bonuses and shortcuts and everything like that is usually folded into the third major thing we see, and that's the in-game shop. Not to be confused by vendors that sell swords or materials or stuff like that, but an actual free-to-play or monetized shop. This area basically holds all the microtransactions and little things that you can buy by spending real money. Be it new clothing for your avatar, ways of speeding up elements, ways of improving the game, you name it, it's stored here. And what we see is that a lot of gamers, especially PC gamers who are more used to the retail purchases, this is the part that drives them nuts. I know it drives me crazy when I see it. And that is the constant egging to spend real money. Even games that have really good gameplay or aren't as bad in terms of monetization can fall into this. When I played Shop Heroes, for instance, which was ported to the PC a few months ago, everything in that game has an associated premium currency cost. And I mean everything. Run out of materials, we can spend a few gems here, get your supply back. Is your hero back from a dungeon? Spend a few gems, you can go right back out again. And it's just literally every little decision you can make has a associated premium currency or real money cost to it. And that just gets very annoying because it puts in the player's mind that these things are how they were simply to earn money. And that is one of the trickiest things to get right, as we've talked about. The beauty of free-to-play games is the fact that there is no barrier of entry. The problem is when there is no barrier, there's no reason to spend money. And the kind of, paradox or the catch-22 is, while free-to-play means you can have everyone playing your game and you'll have huge numbers, it doesn't mean those people are going to spend money, so you may still fail or lose all your money making the game. And that's why they have to, or that's why developers most often will figure out as many different ways to get money flowing. It could be things as simple, again, as shortcuts or speed-ups, to having new content. New DLC packs once a month or every other month, stuff like that. Interestingly, when DC Universe Online first came out and it had the subscription fee, they touted monthly updates as the reason for that fee. That was what your $10 or $15 a month would go for. Unfortunately, it only lasted them, I think, 2 months before they just completely couldn't keep up that pace. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of MMOs have gone free to play. Because the pace and the amount of work needed to justify that $10 to $15 a month, most studios can't handle it. Again, you're making original content every 30 days. This was pretty much like the strain of early access before early access was even a thing. Now, when it comes to that transition from retail to free to play, we can see different games struggle or try to do things differently to get people to play. With Star Trek Online up there, I actually liked that game. And when it went free to play, I did play it for some time. It had very interesting mechanics and systems. But it ran into kind of like the same problem that a lot of free-to-play MMOs and retail to free-to-play transition games have made, and that is trying to justify the costs. People will buy new content. They'll spend, $4 or $5 or $10 for new expansions and series of quests because that's real content. But to get them to spend continually or spend on, the quote-unquote whale items, the $50 to $100 super stuff, is a lot harder. And what happens is we see some developers try to push that so far that it just collapses the game. And a really good example of that would be Age of Empires Online. And for those of you watching, please let me know if you played that, because I'm not sure I actually met anyone who played that game for more than a few minutes. Age of Empires Online was originally handled by, I want to say, Gas Powered Games, but I think they may have been the developer who picked it up second. And what this was an attempt at taking the Age of Empires series, the more complex strategy games, and turn into an online game that people can play with friends, go on quests, and have the social interaction. And the basic version of that game was actually quite good. They turned the home city concept, which was introduced in Age of Empires 3, and essentially made that a surrogate avatar for the player. You could equip different buildings with gear, which would influence your play during the real-time strategy matches. Like, you could attach better farming equipment to your farms, and then your workers will farm a little bit quicker than normal. But I think by saying that, you should probably guess what happened. What they did was, one, it completely broke the real-time strategy matchup. As we know, real-time strategy games, or strategy games in general, are all about the high-level play and a balanced atmosphere. But when you start throwing in like rare and legendary items that upset things, it makes it very hard to play, because you're never sure if you're winning or losing because of your own skill, or because you just grinded enough or got lucky with loot. And the loot items were a very big deal. Anyone who's played a strategy game can tell you just how important a few extra seconds or a few more hit points can be to winning or losing a match. Now imagine a strategy game where all of that can be altered by spending real money or by grinding levels. You could have essentially characters who could counter their own weaknesses. And they actually did that. They actually had the goal to do that with the elite matches. They introduced elite versions of units that had a lot more health, defense, and offense. So you had cavalry who could effectively fight their counter unit, the spearmen, and they would win every time. Imagine if they tried something like that with StarCraft, saying, they can make Zerglings who are now immune to fire, or make Zerglings able to essentially, rush Terrans who are being healed. Like, they can counter the Terran's healing ability. And when you start introducing changes like that, the whole game falls apart. And more importantly, it brings in the dreaded pay-to-win stigma. And as we talked about in earlier critical thoughts and posts on Game Wisdom, pay to win is when there is premium content or elements that positively impact an experience that can only be bought or used with premium currency. And as we've said, it's less black and white and more of a scale. But again, when you are literally having powerful items that can only be used by real money, that's a big problem. And what they did with Age of Empires was the only way to use these items was to unlock the premium civ, which was $20 per civ. And once you do that, all the items that you got that were, I think, rare and higher could be used. You get special advantages, you can do unique stuff, and there were still the microtransactions in the game as well. Now, the developers did slowly wise up near the end. They allow you to earn Empire points, which were the premium currency of the game, but the game was already hemorrhaging. I can't talk anymore. They were losing subscribers pretty much day in, day out, and the negative stigma was just too much, and the game was closed. And again, when we talked about free to play, you have to be careful of these elements. The second you get that pay to win stigma attached to your game, all hope is lost. Some games have managed to turn it around or been able to, I guess, win out due to their positive gameplay. I know when I played Marvel Puzzle Quest, which I really liked, but found the monetization element so frustrating, it's still considered a popular game today. I don't know how popular it is compared to when I first played it, but I haven't heard it being closed yet, so that's good. Star Trek Online is still going on. I don't know their actual sub count each month, but again, they're still hanging in there. So to wrap up this critical thought, that migration has to be handled carefully. As we've seen with games like Evolve, Star Trek Online, and even other games, even like Team Fortress 2, you need to make the transition as painless as possible for your existing people, and at the same time, not so blatant or exploitive that it's going to keep new players from trying it out. I'm curious, for those of you who've played Evolve, what you think of the new changes. It's on my list of games to play. Maybe I'll get around to it at some point. And to quickly wrap it up, one final point that we see, which should be an obvious one, when a game makes that transition from retail to free-to-play, is more grindy elements. More, again, this goes back to what I said earlier, with ways of getting you to spend money. And we see this when games maybe add in new leveling mechanics in order to unlock good stuff, or things that can break that you have to either spend in-game resources or spend money to repair. Again, it's all about trying to essentially pick and take apart your game to figure out as many different ways you can get money. And as we've said before, when we see games that work like this, they are normally designed from the get-go around this model. When you're trying to transition a game from one to the other, it definitely causes some growing pains. I'll be curious to see if Battleborn will remain retail or free-to-play. There's also, wow, we are really getting late, but quickly, this also goes into the idea of games as a service, which that will definitely be another critical thought real soon. But we gotta wrap this up because we're approaching 20 minutes. So, thanks so much for watching today's critical thought. Thank you to 726 subscribers here. Be sure to vote for the next Let's Play. And once again, I'm Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Thanks for watching today's critical thought, and I will see you all tomorrow with another one. Have a great night, folks. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, of course, share with your friends. It always helps out. Check out Game-Wisdom.com, where I examine the art and science of games. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter under GW Bycer for the latest updates of new content. And be sure to check out our Patreon campaign. You can find us on Patreon under Game Wisdom if you would like to donate and help contribute to keeping Game Wisdom going. Your donations can not only give us the monthly funding we need to keep supporting ourselves, but if we can hit some goals, it will mean more great content for you, and there are some nifty little rewards there as well. Thanks again for watching this video, and be sure to tune into the next one real soon.